Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. The early morning sunlight poured gently through the muslin curtains and spilled onto the carpet, tracing the trajectory of the subtle dance of dust. Outside the window, a few early birds jumped on the branches, making crisp chirps, and everything seemed so serene and peaceful. However, this serenity could not hide the growing uneasiness within Ben's heart. "Quiet," Ben murmured, pulling the covers up out of habit to make his body sink more comfortably into the soft mattress. The silence had once made him feel incredibly comfortable and relaxed, but now it was suffocating him like an impermeable net. He and Kathy have been married for 24 years, and their two children, Noah and Emma, are in college and starting independent lives. The house, once full of laughter, suddenly becomes empty after the children leave home, and the distance between him and Kathy seems to drift away as the children leave. In the recent past, Kathy had always left early and stayed late, and Ben could clearly feel a change in her. Whereas Kathy's cell phone used to sit casually on the coffee table in the living room or on the nightstand in her bedroom, now she almost never leaves her phone, even in the shower. Sometimes Ben would wake up in the middle of the night and see Kathy walking alone into the living room, whispering into her cell phone with a tender expression on her face that he had never seen before. Whenever he got close, Kathy would immediately hang up or hide her cell phone behind her back and explain in a slightly flustered tone that it was work. Moreover, she began to work overtime frequently and often went out on weekends for various reasons, even sometimes saying that she was traveling with her company colleagues, but could not say where she was clearly located. At first, Ben just thought it was a little strange, but he didn't think any deeper. After all, they had been married for so many years that he had full trust in Kathy. However, as time passes and Kathy's erratic behavior increases, the doubts in Ben's mind grow. He begins to wonder if Kathy is having an affair. Once this thought arose, it was like a weed growing wildly in his heart, making it difficult for him to sleep or eat. He'd told himself countless times to trust Kathy, but the anticlimactic details kept flashing back in his mind, tormenting his nerves. That morning, Ben woke up and Kathy had already left for work. He was alone in his bed, staring at the ceiling in disbelief. The sunlight was shining through the cracks in the curtains, casting a trail of light and shadow across his face, and his thoughts drifted with them. He recalled the moments when he and Kathy had met and fallen in love, and those wonderful memories had once been his most precious treasures, but now they were like sharp knives, stabbing his heart. He tried to turn his attention to his work, but he simply couldn't concentrate. Images of Kathy with someone else kept popping into his mind, images that tore at his sanity like demons, causing him pain. He forced himself to get up, walked to the bathroom, and washed his face with cold water. The cold water irritated his skin and sobered him up a little. He went back to his bedroom, ready to change for the office. As he bent down to take out the shoes he was going to change from under the bed, an unusual object caught his eye. Under the bed, near the foot of the bed, lay quietly a condom wrapper, with a conspicuous brand logo emblazoned on its reflective silver surface, which stood out in the dark underbed environment. Ben's heart snapped and a chill instantly traveled through his entire body. He felt his mind go blank, as if he had been punched hard. Mechanically, he picked up the wrapper and looked at it carefully. Yes, it was a condom wrapper, and one that had been used, and the torn edges could be seen, jagged, as if mocking his stupidity and naivety. He could even smell the hint of the characteristic odor that lingered on the wrapper. He felt a wave of vertigo and almost fell to the ground. He gripped the wrapper so tightly that his knuckles turned white from the force. This discovery, like a sharp dagger, viciously pierced the last glimmer of hope in his heart, completely tearing apart the peaceful life he had painstakingly maintained. Ben had a vasectomy and they hadn't used a condom in years. This condom wrapper could only belong to one explanation: Kathy cheated on him. Anger, pain, despair, and disbelief, all kinds of emotions are intertwined, like a tsunami raging in his heart. He could not believe that his wife, with whom he had been with for 24 years, would betray him. He thought about all of Kathy's erratic behavior in the recent past and her far-fetched explanations, and now that he thought about it, it was all so suspicious. Ben feels like his world is falling apart, and he can't accept the harsh truth. He squeezed his eyes shut and tried to calm himself down, but he realized that he had no control over his trembling body. Over the next few days, Ben was in more pain than he'd ever been in before. He couldn't concentrate on his work and was often alone, his mind constantly replaying bits and pieces of his time with Kathy and that prickly condom wrapper. He tries to communicate with Kathy, but every time the words reach his mouth, he swallows them. He didn't know how to talk or how to face Kathy. He was afraid to hear the answer he least expected and to lose the woman he once loved. In the midst of endless pain and struggle, he began searching the internet for information about marital betrayal and divorce, desperate to find an answer that would explain it all. Ben clicked into an online forum filled with threads about cheating, betrayal, and divorce, each one like a knife that stabbed deep into his heart. He saw many people with similar experiences to his, who poured out their pain and despair in the forums, seeking help and comfort. Ben realizes he can't go on like this. He has to get to the bottom of things. But how can we find out what Kathy did without spooking her? He was clueless on his own and had to find professional help. He remembers his longtime friend Ethan Hunt, a well-known local divorce attorney. In addition to handling divorce cases, Ethan often recommends private investigators to his clients that he feels are reliable. Ben called Ethan and asked him to meet him for lunch. On the phone, Ethan's hearty laugh came through. "Ben, old friend, what's up? Have you figured out that you want to get along with your sister-in-law for a change?" Ben smiled bitterly and said, "Ethan, I'm not in the mood for jokes right now. I need your help." Ethan heard the gravity in Ben's tone, and he put away his jokes and asked seriously, "Ben, what happened?" "I can't tell you over the phone. Let's meet and talk," Ben said. At noon, Ben and Ethan met at a restaurant they frequented. Ben tells Ethan about his findings and suspicions, and he looks at Ethan with a look of helplessness and confusion in his eyes. Ethan listened quietly, his brow furrowed. After listening to Ben, he was silent for a moment, then said, "Ben, I'm sorry to hear that. I know you must be in a lot of pain right now, but you have to calm down. If you suspect that Kathy is having an affair, I can recommend a very good private investigator to you. His name is Lucas Hood. He is very experienced and discreet. He can definitely help you find out the truth. I can give you his contact information, but remember, before you are completely sure, you must keep it quiet, and don't even let Kathy notice anything strange." Ben nodded and took down the phone number Ethan had given him. He knew that once this step was taken, there would be no turning back. Over the next few days, Ben continued to maintain a facade of calm while keeping in touch with Lucas. He followed Lucas's instructions and provided him with Kathy's personal information, workplace, vehicle information, and travel schedule for the most recent period of time. Lucas begins to follow up on Kathy. Like a ghost, he appears silently in every place Kathy appears, recording her every move with his camera and recording device. Lucas called Ben a few days later. He told Ben that he noticed that Kathy often met with a man named Xavier, who was Kathy's co-worker and supervisor, during her lunch breaks and after work. Lucas sends Ben some photos of Kathy and Xavier sitting opposite each other in a cafe, talking, laughing, and behaving in an intimate manner, not at all like ordinary co-workers. Ben looks at the pictures and his anger is reignited. He felt his dignity had been trampled on and his trust betrayed. But he forced himself to calm down, knowing that now was not the time to explode. He needed more evidence, more conclusive evidence, in order to leave Kathy speechless. "Lucas, keep following up and gather all the information you can about them being together, especially if they went to the hotel together," Ben said to Lucas, his voice cold and firm. "Okay, Ben, I'll do my best. But remember, you must stay calm and not do anything impulsive," Lucas admonished. "I know. Thank you, Lucas." Ben hung up, his heart filled with mixed emotions. He was both eager to know the truth and afraid to face it. He didn't know how he was going to face Kathy, how he was going to face a marriage that was already riddled with holes, the day the truth came out. He feels a deep sense of powerlessness and can only wait for Lucas to bring him the final judgment. Days go by, and each day is an ordeal for Ben. He goes to work and leaves work as usual, keeping an outward peace with Kathy, but inside he suffers from pain all the time. He tries hard to find a crack in Kathy's demeanor, but Kathy acts drippy, which makes Ben feel even more uneasy. Meanwhile, Lucas' investigation is in full swing. He keeps Ben informed of Kathy's whereabouts and his meetings with Xavier on a daily basis. According to Lucas's description, the relationship between Kathy and Xavier was getting closer and closer, and they not only often dined and drank coffee together, but also frequented some upscale places, and there were even a few occasions when Kathy stayed at Xavier's company until very late at night. Ben's anger grew as he looked at the photos and videos Lucas had sent. In the photo, Kathy and Xavier are having dinner at an upscale restaurant, talking and laughing, and Kathy has a long-lost smile on her face, one that Ben hasn't seen on her face in a long time. In the video, Xavier's hand gently rests on Kathy's shoulder, while Kathy obediently rests her head on Xavier's shoulder, and the intimate gesture between the two completely pierces Ben's heart. On this day, Lucas called Ben as usual, but his tone was more serious than ever. "Ben, I followed Kathy and Xavier today to a motel in the suburbs, Willow Creek, where they parked their car in the back of the motel and registered for a room," Lucas said. Ben's heart sank so hard he felt a wave of vertigo and could barely stand. He knew what that meant, and it meant that the last shred of illusion between him and Kathy had been completely shattered. "Ben, what do you need me to do?" Lucas asked. "Help me figure out what room they're in," Ben said, his voice trembling, barely able to get a complete sentence out. "It could take some time, you know. Places like this don't usually give out information about their guests easily," Lucas said. "Whatever it takes, make sure you get it right." "Money isn't the issue," Ben said, determination in his tone. "Okay," Lucas replied. He used his professional contacts and skills, including exploiting potential security holes in the motel, to finally get the room number. Ben hung up the phone and he felt his body shaking. He forced himself to calm down, knowing that he had to make a decision now. The next few hours were longer than a century for Ben. He kept walking around the room, his mind in turmoil. One minute he wants to rush to the motel and catch Kathy and Xavier in the act, and the next he wants to run away from reality and pretend that nothing ever happened. Finally, Lucas called. "Ben, I found out. They're in room 208. Lucas said, "I used something and I can hear them in their room now." Ben's heart raced and he felt his palms sweat. "Play me the sound," Ben said. Lucas connects the device to his cell phone, and Ben puts the phone to his ear, where he hears an intermittent conversation that is Kathy's and Xavier's voices. The voices sounded a little muffled due to the distance and the walls and doors separating them, but Ben was still able to distinguish their voices. "Honey, when are you going to show him off?" Xavier's voice came with a hint of urgency. "Don't worry, honey. I'll talk to him when the time is right." Kathy's voice came through with a hint of impatience. "Didn't you promise?" Because the signal was intermittent, Ben only heard half of the sentence. "But I can't wait. I want to be with you every day." Xavier's voice came again. "I know, honey, so do I. But now is not the time. I need his money to—" Kathy's voice broke, but Ben heard the word money clearly. "But your body and soul." "My." Xavier's voice. "Don't worry, I'm just temporarily. Deal with him. When I get what I want, then I'll divorce him." Kathy's voice came with a hint of indifference. "You promise?" Xavier's voice. "I promise. Trust me." Kathy's voice. "Oh, baby. You are so mesmerizing." Xavier's voice. Ben couldn't listen any longer. He felt like his heart was being clutched so hard by a big invisible hand that he was almost suffocating. He couldn't believe that his wife, whom he had loved for so many years, would betray him for money and say such desperate words. "Ben, are you okay?" Lucas' voice came from the other end of the line with a hint of concern. "I'm fine," Ben said, his voice hoarse as hell. "Thanks, Lucas." Ben hung up the phone, feeling anger and hatred fill his body. He wants revenge, and he's going to make Kathy and Xavier pay. "Ben, what are you going to do now? Do you want me to go in and take care of it for you?" Lucas asked, a hint of tentativeness in his tone. "No, Lucas, thank you for your kind words, but I want to handle this personally," Ben said, a flame of hatred flickering in his eyes. "I don't want to tear into her just yet. It won't be good for my next plans." We need to gather more evidence on them and get that to Ethan. I'm going to make Kathy lose her name in court and leave her with nothing. But, Ben, you have to realize that this could anger Kathy and make her do something irrational. Lucas warned. I know, but I don't care. I have nothing left to lose. Ben said, his voice cold and terrifying. Keep watching them for me. I want to know their every move until I inform you it's over. Okay, Ben, take care of yourself. Lucas said. Over the next few days, Ben forces himself to calm down as he begins to formulate a detailed plan for revenge. He knew that he had to take things in stride now and not miss a beat. He's going to make Kathy and Xavier pay dearly for their treachery. He ostensibly became more considerate of Kathy and even began to take the initiative to take care of household chores, and revealed in his words that he wanted to transfer some of his assets to Kathy's name, which caused Kathy to let her guard down even more. His plan for revenge, he knew, was just beginning. A carefully orchestrated storm is about to send shockwaves through their lives. And at the center of this storm is their upcoming 24th wedding anniversary. For the next few days, Ben seemed like a different person. Instead of being depressed and miserable as he had been before, he became remarkably calm and efficient. He became actively involved in his work and even volunteered to work overtime, much to the surprise of his coworkers. And at home, he showed more thoughtfulness and tenderness to Kathy than ever before. He began to take the initiative to take on more household chores, prepare breakfast and dinner for Kathy, and would even set up some romantic dates on the weekends. Kathy was very pleased with Ben's transformation, which she attributed to her coaching. She becomes more reckless and dates Xavier more frequently. She even starts to think about the wonderful future with Xavier in front of Ben, fantasizing about how they will travel the world and enjoy a luxurious life after getting Ben's property. And Ben watched Kathy's performance in silence, a sneer filling his mind. He knew that Kathy had now fallen completely into his trap and that her greed and hypocrisy would be her ultimate grave. While blundering along with Kathy, Ben is secretly moving forward with his revenge plan. Using his extensive contacts and resources, he begins to investigate Xavier's background. He found out that Xavier had a bad reputation in the company, and many people knew that he had used his position to do a lot of irregularities, and was even suspected of embezzling public funds. Also, Xavier has a lot of debt out there, and a large part of the reason he approached Kathy was for the money. Ben anonymously reported this information to the company's board of directors and covertly contacted several co-workers and shareholders with whom he did not get along, revealing to them Xavier's inappropriate relationship with Kathy and his personal problems. Soon after, the company launched an internal investigation. Xavier and Kathy were suspended, and the company hired an outside auditor to conduct a full audit of the projects for which Xavier was responsible. Owen Shaw, the company's CEO, took the matter very seriously, as one of his previous key partners had gone bankrupt due to internal corruption issues, which had caused him huge losses. Owen expressed his concern to Ethan, who was in charge of the company's legal affairs, and Ethan assured him that he would find out the truth and give him a satisfactory answer as soon as possible. These things happen very quickly and Kathy is caught off guard. She doesn't know who reported her and Xavier or how far the company's investigation will go. She was terrified, and she began to realize that she might have overplayed her hand. It was at this time that Ben told Kathy that he had recently been exposed to a suspected case of the new coronavirus and that he needed to stay home in quarantine for a week to be safe. Kathy has no suspicions because Xavier is also under quarantine for investigation, and she thinks Ben got the infection from Xavier. She was even secretly glad so she could spend more time with Xavier. What Kathy doesn't realize, however, is that this is part of Ben's plan. He used the week to start working on their 24th wedding anniversary party. He booked a swanky hotel ballroom and invited all of his friends and family, including Kathy's family and friends and Xavier's wife, Olivia. He also arranged a special program that he said would be a surprise for Kathy. While preparing for the party, Ben stayed in close contact with Ethan. He gives Ethan the evidence he's gathered about Xavier and asks him to take action at the Memorial Day party. Ethan is somewhat hesitant to do so because he believes that it could be detrimental to Ben's divorce proceedings and that it would be inappropriate to handle a business dispute in a private setting. However, at Ben's insistence, Ethan eventually agrees to his request. Before we knew it, A week had passed and Ben and Kathy's 24th wedding anniversary party was held as scheduled. The party was held in the hotel's ballroom, which was lavishly decorated with flowers and balloons everywhere. Guests were arriving and everyone congratulated Ben and Kathy. The whole scene seemed both lively and harmonious. Kathy was wearing an expensive evening gown and had a happy smile on her face. She took Ben's arm as she made her way through the guests and received everyone's well wishes. She thought it was going to be a good night, a day to remember. What she didn't know, however, was that a storm was coming. Halfway through the party, Ben walked up to the stage, grabbed the microphone, and said, "Friends and family, thank you for coming to my 24th wedding anniversary party with Kathy. Today, I have a special gift for Kathy." Kathy stood on stage with an expectant look on her face. She thought Ben was going to give her an expensive gift or ask her to marry him, just like in the movies. Ben went on to say, "Kathy and I have weathered many storms together over the past 24 years, and we have always had a great relationship. However, during this recent time, I have realized something that has caused me a great deal of pain. I know that Kathy has always been a very good woman. She is smart, capable, and attractive. But I didn't expect that she would use her charm to cheat on my feelings and my trust." Upon hearing this, Kathy's face began to turn pale and she felt a pang of unease. She didn't know why Ben was saying these things or what he was going to do next. Ben paused and continued, "I know that Kathy has put in a lot of work and a lot of stress over the years to keep this family together and to get more of what she wants. So, I thought that I should do something for her too, to make her happy." Ben snapped his fingers and the lights in the ballroom dimmed, and a chasing light hit the big screen in the center of the stage. "Next, please enjoy a great video," Ben said. The video begins to play and a scene is shown of Kathy and Xavier together. There's footage of them on a date at a restaurant, footage of them making out at a coffee shop, and footage of them going in and out of a motel. Each image was like a sharp knife, piercing Kathy's heart viciously. Everyone in the room was shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. Kathy's family and friends look at her with a look of disbelief, while Xavier's wife Olivia is shaking with anger. To add to Kathy's despair, the video is interspersed with recordings of some of their conversations. Those recordings clearly show Kathy's affair with Xavier and the fact that Kathy cheated on Ben for money. "Honey, when are you going to show your cards to him?" "I want you." Xavier's voice. "Don't worry, honey. When the time is right. I need his money. Deal with him. Divorce." Kathy's voice broke, but every word was like a bomb that exploded in Kathy's mind. The video ends with footage of Kathy and Xavier in a motel room, and although the footage is blurry, you can still clearly see their intimate gestures. The video played and the ballroom fell silent as all eyes focused on Kathy. Kathy felt as if she had been stripped naked and exposed to the crowd. Her body couldn't stop trembling, and tears flowed down her face uncontrollably. Just then, Ben picked up the microphone again and said, "I know that everyone must have a lot of questions right now. In fact, I have been investigating the matter between Kathy and Xavier for a long time. I don't understand why Kathy would rather betray me and be with Xavier than continue this emotionless marriage." Ben took out a folder and continued, "In addition to what happened with Kathy and Xavier, I found out something even more interesting. Xavier, as a position in the company, surprisingly took advantage of his position to do a lot of irregularities and even misappropriated public funds. Here's a copy of a portion of his incriminating evidence for you to circulate. I'm sure that the company's board of directors and legal department will definitely conduct an in-depth investigation into these matters." No sooner had Ben's words left his mouth than Ethan walked into the ballroom with a couple of men. They walked right up to Kathy and Xavier and presented them with divorce papers and court subpoenas, along with documents from the company's internal investigation. "Ms. Veronica, here are your divorce papers for you to sign. Also, in light of your personal relationship with Mr. Xavier and the potential risk it poses to the company has suspended you and will be investigating you." Ethan said, "Mr. Xavier, this is a lawsuit filed against you on charges of using your position for personal gain and misappropriation of public funds. Please come back with us to be investigated." A man behind Ethan said to Xavier. At this point, Xavier's face was ashen, and he knew it was all over for him. Kathy, on the other hand, was completely devastated, crying and cursing, but nothing was helping anymore. Olivia rushes up to Xavier and slaps him hard before running out of the ballroom in tears. The guests in the room were stunned by the suddenness of the scene and were talking and pointing at Kathy and Xavier. Ben looked at what was in front of him with mixed emotions. He felt both pain and relief. He knew that the farce was finally over and his marriage to Kathy had come to an end. After this sudden drama, Ben and Kathy's lives are turned upside down. That night's anniversary party was a bombshell that completely blew up their already flawed marriage and shattered Kathy and Xavier's carefully woven dreams. In the days that followed, Ben and Kathy began a long and painful divorce proceeding. With Ben in possession of hard evidence of Kathy's infidelity, as well as evidence of Xavier's corporate misdeeds, the divorce lawsuit was doomed from the start. Ethan, as Ben's attorney, showed his usual professionalism and sharpness in the courtroom. He lists Kathy and Xavier's scandals, as well as Xavier's transgressions at the company, with ample evidence. Kathy did hire an attorney, but her defense paled in the face of the mountain of hard evidence Ben provided. After a 7-month tug-of-war, the court finally granted Ben and Kathy a divorce. Kathy is at a definite disadvantage in property division because of her marital infidelity and proven attempts to obtain Ben's property through deception. Not only does she not get the large fortune she expected, but even her children express disappointment in her behavior, and Noah and Emma, while not explicitly taking their father's side, gradually alienate Kathy and, in the days that follow, slowly regain contact with Ben. Xavier's fate was even worse, as he was not only fired from the company, but also prosecuted for misappropriation of public funds and other charges, and eventually sentenced to a prison term. For Ben, the divorce lawsuit was physically and emotionally exhausting, but it also allowed him to get out of the painful marriage once and for all. He's lost a portion of his fortune, but it's so much better compared to the amount Kathy was attempting to scavenge, and more importantly, he's finally able to start a new life. Owen Shaw, the company's CEO, also reached out to Ben while the divorce proceedings were underway. He expresses his gratitude to Ben for exposing Xavier's true colors and preventing the company from losing even more money. Owen told Ben that the project Xavier was responsible for involved the company's core interests, and that if Ben hadn't discovered and reported it in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. As a token of appreciation and to avoid further negative press about the company, Owen offered to pay Ben $1 million as compensation. Ben accepted the money, knowing that it was what he deserved and that it would secure his new life ahead. After the divorce proceedings, Ben moved out of the home he and Kathy once owned. He sold the house, which was full of painful memories, and with part of the money bought a small farm in the country. The farm is located in a scenic valley with fresh air, dense woods, and a clear stream. Ben built a cabin there and lived the idyllic life he had longed for. He has a couple of dogs and takes them for daily walks in the fields, enjoying the peace and beauty of nature. He also reclaimed several vegetable plots and planted a variety of vegetables and fruits. Every harvest season, he shares the joy of the harvest by giving fresh produce to the neighbors around him. Shortly after moving to the farm, Ben joined a local book club on a whim. There he made a group of like-minded friends. They meet weekly to share their favorite books and discuss a variety of topics. Ben loved the atmosphere and found himself enjoying the simplicity and fullness of life more and more. 3 years later, Ben has fully adapted to life in the country. He wakes up early every day to check out those precious vegetables and fruits of his in the vegetable patch before taking his dog for a walk. In the afternoon, he would read or write. He began writing articles about his gardening experiences and insights into country life and posting them on his blog. His blog quickly attracted a loyal following of readers who love Ben's writing and the lifestyle he shares. Ben occasionally connects with the kids. Noah and Emma have graduated from college and are working in different cities. They sympathize with Ben and are disappointed in the behavior of his mother, Kathy. Although their relationship hadn't quite returned to its former level of closeness, Ben could sense that the children were slowly coming to understand him and accept him. Whenever it was late at night, Ben would sit alone on the porch of the cabin and look up at the star-filled sky. He'll think of that painful past, of Kathy's betrayal, of Xavier's ugly face. But he realized that the hatred and resentment in his heart had gradually disappeared, replaced by a sense of calm and relief. He knew that he had completely let go of the past and started a new life. He is no longer the poor betrayed, cheated man, but a confident, hopeful newborn. One day, Ben was sorting through old stuff and found a dusty photo album. He opens the photo album with pictures of him and Kathy when they were young. In the photo, they were smiling so brightly and happily. Ben looked at the photos with a lot of emotion. He knew that those good memories would never go away, but they were in the past, an episode in his life's journey. Ben closed the album and put it back. He stepped out of the cabin, breathing in the fresh air and feeling the warmth of the sun. He knows that there is a long road ahead, but he is ready for new challenges and a new life. His face broke into a long-lost smile that was heartfelt and genuinely happy. He looked into the distance, where a flock of birds were flying freely, and he knew that he, like those birds, had finally gained his freedom and flown into the vast sky where he belonged. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.